No one can even tell that I want to blow my brains out.
Yeah.
Vloggers were an integral part of the YouTuber creator economy and dominating the space a few years back. But now almost all the original lifestyle bloggers are like a dying breed and have faded away. It's a format that has a limited shelf life and will always lead to damaging both the audience and the creator. Why is that the case? Today I'm going to be explaining why I think the vlogging format itself has always been inherently flawed.
Really hurt by what I made.
It cannibalized my entire existence.
Although there's been a huge variety of vloggers, I'm going to predominantly focus on the top vlogging creators, the ones that have pushed vlogging to the limits and have actually voiced their struggles rather than just vanishing. If this is happening to the supposed best of us, I'm worrying about how it affects the rest of us. It always starts off with the desire to create, to share stuff that you find interesting within your life. Eventually that starts to gain traction, so you build an audience and a following. You are presented with a rare opportunity that thousands of people dream of. So, of course, the natural progression anyone would take is to double down on it and make this career a reality, making the big assumption that you can make it at all. So once you've made that jump and you have comfortably made it as a full-time vlogger, on paper, you're successful and, quote, winning at life from society's point of view. And oh my god, would it feel good as well. The admiration of thousands of people, more money than you could have ever imagined from any day job, as well as doing what you love for a living. But this is where the paradoxical problems start coming in. The more popular and successful you become, issues start manifesting. Without even being aware of it, these issues start running in the background, starting with the hedonic treadmill. According to this theory, as a person makes more money, expectations and desires rise in tandem, which results in no permanent gain in happiness. And so in pursuing these hedonistic goals, your lifestyle starts changing. The scarcity and relatability that you originally had gets replaced with bigger invites to fancy events, more riches, and a bigger audience. The cycle continues to feed itself. Suddenly, this new lifestyle you adopt becomes your entire livelihood. So how do you ensure that you retain your audience while simultaneously continuing to grow? Because if you're not growing your audience, it's the start of your drift towards irrelevancy and therefore the end of your dream job. I feel like vloggers were presented with two options, sensationalism or creativity. Let's explore the one that Logan Paul and David Dobrik took. You keep producing sensationalized content in order to keep them clickable and watchable, but what happens to the longevity? You keep searching for higher highs. One day you're pranking your friends, and the next you're tasing dead animals. Where does it all end? Until something extreme with consequences happen, the answer is, it doesn't. The sad thing is that vloggers have done this in the past because it works. Unfortunately, it was a band-aid method that would work until a line was crossed. And we all know how those turned out. Once it's crossed, it's too late.
This weighs on me every fucking minute of every day of my life.
I made a severe and continuous lapse in my judgment.
I went to Japan. I got to go to Tokyo, and that was my first time out the country.
Had a lot of fun there.
Yeah, but it was good.
Great place. We would love to go there anytime soon if possible.
Yeah,
Have you been before?
Oh man.
Oh, is this a sore subject?
No.
Oh, yeah. Forgot about that.
The other solution is to become a better creative and visual storyteller. This is where I think the meat of the video is, and most people know but have difficulty understanding how vloggers can look like they're having fun and are successful, but have thoughts like this.
No one can even tell that I want to blow my brains out.
And I would bully myself into pushing through it, and I would cover up my pain.
I had no life at all. Like, my whole life was just making that work. It cannibalized my entire existence.
To understand what's going on, we have to get inside a vlogger's brain and see what they're really thinking. I found there to be 4 points that were consistently brought up. All of these combine to make a pool of mental health issues that the rest of your thoughts marinate in your brain. So that leads to, you guessed it, a not so great time. Starting with an audience of millions. It's a double-edged sword of how you make your living versus its own set of problems. The dialogue about parasocial relationships online has been more public and open in recent years, compared to the past and how it affects an audience. But the other end of the spectrum isn't talked about as much, as the scale is so small and isolated specifically to the creator. This makes it much harder to discuss in the open, as the audience has a lot more difficulty relating to it. As much as the audience can recognize that vloggers are not your friends, it goes the other way that vloggers can be followed by millions and feel completely alone.
I mean, it is one thing to read comments and, do that whole thing, but at the same time, that's not a human connection where you can hug the person, or, you know, you get to actually have a conversation with the person. And on a day-to-day basis, it's like, it's just me and a computer, and then like my two friends and like parents.
There are millions of people that will eventually follow the moment that you're recording online, but in reality, you're alone talking to a camera. The best analogy that I can think of this is feeling alone in a very crowded room. It messes with how you interact with people. This especially includes your loved ones.
If Candace and I weren't in a good place with our marriage, there's no way she was gonna like be chipper when I pointed a camera at her.
Or literally anyone that's in public. How do you know you're not being approached by an ulterior motive? A stranger you're sitting with you know nothing about, and yet they know supposedly everything about you.
Candace got into a taxi cab late at night in New York City. Nothing strange about that. And the taxi cab driver was like a smelly, stinky old man. That's par for the course. Most of them are. But he turned around like in the dark and said to Candace like, "Hi, how is little friend Scene doing?" And it scared the ever-living shit out of her, as it should.
The social interactions aside, your life is constantly being scrutinized by thousands of people. You're constantly being analyzed, judged, and idolized. You need to tweak yourself in order to be able to live up to viewers' expectations. It's like that aunt that you meet at a family reunion that says, "Oh, it seems that you've taken a liking to food recently. You've gotten a bit bigger. How would you find a partner?" It's been goddamn years and I still haven't forgotten about an offhanded comment like that. Meanwhile, vloggers are constantly being put on blast by thousands of comments that lack even more of a filter, given the anonymity of the internet. How you look, how you act, and what you do. Someone's going to have an opinion on it, especially when you put your life out on the internet. But it doesn't make it any easier to cope with.
Next comment that really got to me. Somebody wrote that Candace has no ass. If there's one thing that girl definitely has, it's an ass.
Which brings us to the second point. Your life is the content, therefore there's no separation. Your entire livelihood and therefore life is dependent on what you say, do, and act. That's an incredibly heavy responsibility for anyone to have.
Like, I had no idea what my actual life was or who I actually was. I only understood myself as this character.
As soon as that there's any indication that the views or content starts dipping, how do you not take that personally? I feel like that's impossible given you are the content. Your sense of self-worth is tied directly to how the videos perform, and when they don't perform, you guessed it, a not so great time. You are further forced to develop a deeper connection to your content as well when you have to edit it. You warp your own self-perception. Realistically, if you shoot for about 3 hours a day, you have to spend at least that amount of time rewatching and cutting down that footage, if not more.
Never did an edit take me less than 3 hours kind of thing, 4 hours, but typically it would be like a 6-hour lift every day.
It'd be like that unsettling feeling when you stare into your own reflection in the mirror, but dialed up to 1000.
I'm writing it in my head. Okay, I got more shots than I needed for that first act. I don't need to lean into the running so much. I did that yesterday. The audience is gonna get bored. I'm gonna give 20 seconds of running tops, and I'm gonna include that one line I filmed into my camera when I stepped on like a fucking needle.
You are rewatching everything you say and do with a critical mind, thinking, is this funny enough? Is this entertaining enough? Will people still want to continue to see this? Because again, if you don't, you might lose your dream job of yours. So while you're cutting down your own footage, you're also cutting down your own self-worth.
Not to mention I'm getting sick of the video that I'm editing because I've had to watch it so many different times that I start to think that nothing about it is entertaining, funny, worth watching whatsoever. Basically, I start hating it.
The third point to consider is that you are working every waking hour. As a vlogger, you are always switched on. Every aspect of your life could be a moment that is documented as content. You aren't present and you live through life through the lens of a camera, which makes it feel like you aren't really there.
Like, that's the thing that really, like, Bert, no one knew about. Even thinking about this now, I'm getting anxiety thinking about, like, I was faking being a dad. I was faking being a husband. Like, when Candace would look at me and have some deep conversation and I'm shaking my head, I'm like, Casey, you can act present right now. Act like you're actually listening. Act like you're paying attention, even though all that's going on in my head is like, gotta get this vlog out, gotta get this vlog out, gotta get this vlog out.
You're no longer there in the moment, watering down the experience for yourself and those around you.
What can I share at this exact moment? Like, how can I get my wife prompt enough so when I swing the camera around pointing at her, she says something witty?
Out of the desire to document the best moments, the ethical question arises of, how far do you allow yourself to monetize your life? The sad thing is, only you can answer that question, and the line gets incredibly blurred when you put your identity and self-worth into how content performs on the internet. Besides just documenting content, you also have to be constantly thinking about for the next video a clickable title, subject matter, how to make a cohesive video, and the list goes on and on. Vloggers make video as if they're really carefree and living an effortless life, but a more realistic interpretation is that they're caught in a maze trying to document noteworthy moments of their life to share with an audience. The cherry on top that ties this depressive mindset all together is that you're not able to voice any of these issues. I feel like there's an unspoken rule that both the audience and the creator take part in for vlogging content to succeed. The creator is making content as a form of escapism for the viewer, while the viewer is taking it in most of the time knowing that it's a false reality. For vlogs to succeed, you have to sell the idea of out of the ordinary content even though it's based in reality. Otherwise, why would anyone watch it? It's easy to say when you're not watching content, oh, it's a distorted view of reality. But when you're consuming it back to back and constantly seeing the highs of someone else's life, it becomes harder and harder to genuinely believe. Vlogs promise a good time, so who would want to follow someone who openly expresses their negativity on camera? To open up about it as a content creator means to hurt your own brand and content, breaking the expectations of a viewer who is using your content for entertainment or comfort. Viewers are living vicariously through the vlogger's life. Sadness is probably one of the last emotions they want to experience.
I felt like I had no room to have a bad week. And some weeks I'm sad. And some weeks I don't want people to see my face. And I felt like it was more common than it should be that I was forcing myself to be in a good mood and forcing myself to go out and do stuff for the sake of my video because I didn't want to bring negative energy onto the internet, of course, because sometimes I felt pessimistic, I felt negative, mean, sad, and I didn't want to show that to the world. I didn't want to show that to people.
So what does that lead to? Bottling up feelings until burnout happens and disappearing for a while. The alternative is to come across as out of touch due to having a perfect life yet still being unable to do an easy job. Former YouTuber Lena shared her experiences of how it felt behind the pressure of this said easy job.
At the same time, I would be posting a happy, upbeat video, and then I would have a breakdown, and then I would edit the video, post the video, and then have another breakdown.
These are the recurring thinking patterns that if anyone experienced for weeks, months, and if not years on end, I would be very worried about. Despite all these issues, there are still a handful of YouTubers that have committed to the vlog format and are still killing it. The two main people discussed, Casey and Emma, they've taken a break and recalibrated and are back in the game. They're now taking it at a much healthier pace and creating to express themselves rather than caving in to post content for the sake of it. They seem much happier for it. Other popular, more recent vloggers that come to mind off the top of my head are Ryan Trahan, Amay Zane, and Faylene Sun. The difference in my opinion is that it's a vlog about their lives, not documenting their entire lives. To me, it feels like more of a small scale production where they're actually a host guiding you through a challenge that they've set for themselves or are experiencing, and injecting their personality rather than documenting every possible living and breathing moment. Basically, they've set more clearer boundaries between their content and personal lives, so there's a better separation. Vlogging also works when it's not a central point of their life and the only form of content that they produce. Currently, PewDiePie and Cody Ko are doing great with their vlogs, and it's more of an add-on to what they're already creating, rather than, this is my entire livelihood and I'm banking on this to keep going. Ultimately, vlogging can work when approached with the right mindset, it just takes a lot more awareness than expected. So remember the old and well-known saying that goes, "Ye thine who vloggeth, beware." Know that when you're watching a vlogger, you are there for a transactional exchange. You give them a part of your attention to see a curated aspect of their life, so they're able to do that for a living. As long as you're aware of the pitfalls I've mentioned in this video and take away positive value from watching this type of content, there's no reason not to keep supporting your favorite vloggers. So be kind to your own mental health and the creators that you follow so we can build a healthier audience and create a relationship on this platform. As always, thank you for watching and I hope you have a wonderful day.